This is the YMB and BTC podcast.
Cryptocurrency decrypted.
Welcome to episode 63. We're kicking things off this week with some discussion about the Isle of Man. The small, self-governed island has long been an attractive center for tech and finance startups because of low taxes and a healthy digital infrastructure. It will soon have a regulatory framework for digital currencies, so some expect it to become a Bitcoin paradise, but we're not so sure. Today, we'll chat about what that regulation could entail, and we'll even see Tim completely change his mind on the issue. Then later in the show, we'll touch on net neutrality, what it means for Bitcoin, and a creative Bitcoin-related idea for making the internet more free. And before we finally wrap up, we'll spend some hilarious time discussing comedy techniques, bad jokes, and much more in the first ever, barely cut YMB and BTC afterparty. Your hosts are Tim Baker, John Stewart, and myself, Daniel Brown. Here we go.
Hey everybody, this is Tim. I'm doing the intro again for this show because Daniel wanted to give you guys a little bit of a break from having to listen to him.
You say this every time, and I guess it's true, so...
Yeah, I mean, you don't really give it to me because I'm good at it. You just give it to me because you don't feel like doing it anymore.
Tim, you're better than me.
No, but I do. I've come to like doing it sometimes, getting to talk to the listeners, although normally I'm just talking to you guys. I don't know. Anyway, we're here on a Tuesday. We're recording a little bit later in the week today. You'll get this probably on Thursday, maybe Friday morning. Who knows?
Hey, I have not, I think in the entire, 60-some episodes, I've only been late maybe once or twice. So,
okay,
you should get it on Thursday.
Yeah, you probably should. That's why I said maybe Friday. I'm trying not to put that much pressure on you. I mean, I really hope I kind of do hope some of our listeners are just waiting and like watching it tick down to like 12, but like, it's not going to be here.
Exactly.
Oh, I need it now. Just where is it, Dan? And they see it, and then they just like dopamine just flows, just shoots into their brain, and they're just like, oh, yes, I have it again. I need it. I love it if some of our listeners were addicted to hearing our voices. That'd be great.
I like how you transition from being the listener to being yourself. Like, you're actually addicted to people listening to you. Like, you're addicted to people being addicted to listening to you.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of looking for someone to
That's
feed
what
that
I read
addiction.
into it.
John's now picking apart my need for attention that I've...
Well, it's just like you transitioned seamlessly and you were using the same voice.
Yes, Tim, because you never pick apart words and try and interpret things.
No, I do. I'm an attention whore, I know. I just don't do it at certain places. Like, because people think like, oh, he's like, I don't talk, but that's because they see me at like places where I do not care what anyone there thinks about. If I'm someplace where I care what people think about, I'm just constantly just like trying to get people's attention. Just like, oh, look at this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, just like you care what people think about Bitcoin. So on the show, it's just Tim after Tim after Tim.
Yeah, kind of spouting nonsense and half-baked analogies that end up not working whenever I put them together.
We put it together for you eventually.
You help sometimes, yeah. And the guys here helping me today are...
Daniel Brown.
And John Stewart.
Yeah, see how I worked that in too? I'm just like
firing
pretty good. Off the ideas today.
Tim, you know what? I might give you the first chair every episode now. You're getting this intro down.
This is the problem with doing things right, is then people they expect the same thing from
yeah,
you constantly.
Exactly.
Tell me about it.
I'm learning that in my new job where I'm just like, if something doesn't get done, I'm like, I'm not going to do it. You're not going to get me to start doing this.
Anyway.
Like, oh, it'd be such a help. I don't care how much of a help it is. But
well, Tim, hey, I'm going to let you finish, Tim. I'm going to let you finish. But I want to mention, we got some pretty awesome stuff to talk about today. But I want to mention, before we jump into that, I want to do another a quick mention for TBS, except it's not the TBS with like, what was that guy? George Ford? No, who am I thinking of?
George Ford. George Lopez?
Yeah, George Lopez.
I hate that guy.
Not the TBS with George Lopez.
Why do you pick that? Why do you pick
TBS? This is the Bitcoin Strip. That's why I was thinking of TBS. The Bitcoin
Speaking
Strip.
of dopamine flowing into people's brains.
We mentioned this last week. It's the bitcoinstrip.com. It's a really awesome website. If you're into gambling, if you're into Bitcoin and you're into gambling, you're in a pretty sweet spot because they go perfectly together. The internet just makes things super easy for having a casino, and there's all kinds of different casino experiences. I used to write reviews pretty regularly, and there's some of them are like slots, and some of them are like, there's even like a role-playing game that's built around Bitcoin gambling, and dice sites. There's literally all kinds of sweet sites out there, and what the Bitcoin Strip does is they collect all these sites, gather a bunch of data, stats, how much has been gambled there, just anything you could ever want to know about the tons and tons of Bitcoin gambling sites out there. They just collect that data and share it with you, tell you which ones are more popular, less popular. They write reviews. So it's pretty much a nice hub for all kinds of Bitcoin gambling information if you're interested. So check out thebitcoinstrip.com if you like TBS. You can watch the TV channel, but they probably won't really tell you much about Bitcoin gambling. So
that was good, Daniel.
It's true though. I mean, have you ever seen George Lopez talk about Bitcoin gambling?
I haven't watched George Lopez.
I haven't either, even though I said I hate him. I don't think I've watched him, but I still hate him.
I mean, I've seen him in the past, like not like actively. I haven't been like, oh, I want to put this on. It's like he's been on, or other people have watched him, and I don't watch it. I try to take the bad things out of my life, Daniel, and keep them far away from me.
That's what I was gonna say.
Hack comics and actually, he's not a hack comic. It's just I don't like comedians like that, or
I just don't like stand up in general. But I'm pretty sure I especially dislike them.
Oh my gosh!
No, stand up's good. It has to be a certain kind. I mean, sometimes you can. I mean, I don't really care for just like, oh, let's relate to the normal guy. Let's bring up all this stuff. Oh, hey man, the
How
joke.
about this airline food?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that. I mean, no one does that anymore. But like people are more involved with their stories. It's just like kind of like empty stuff, though. But if it's something where someone's actually like talking about something and being like, well, why do we do this? What, like trying to like point out. Like, if you're pointing, it's less of a comedy thing and more pointing out absurdities in our lives, and we kind of laugh at it so that we're not too, because there's not much else you could do whenever you go, everyone has a problem when it happens like this, but if it happens like this, everyone's fine with it. And it's the exact same thing, we just don't do it, and we go, oh, haha, that's crazy, or something. That's more what I like, and that's not as much as of it as would be better. I don't know where I'm going with
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really even into that. I've tried to get into stand-up. It's not my thing.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I freaking love comedy, but I guess it's not John's thing. So Tim has a pretty interesting article lined up about, I don't know, kind of like a Bitcoin paradise that's in the works. At least some people might imagine that could happen. So I'm going to let Tim take it away.
Okay, this is an article from Business Insider. The title is, Here's the Isle of Man's Plan to Become a Bitcoin Paradise. It's written by Joshua Berry. That's how you pronounce his name. And it's from March 10th. It's from today. And if any of you don't know, the Isle of Man is a tiny Celtic island between the west coast of England and Northern Ireland. And it's soon to pass legislation that its government hopes will help it become a true paradise for digital currencies. So, the Isle of Man is this British, protectorate. It's a territory of them, but they don't necessarily, govern it. They help protect it. Or, I don't know that they've ever had to protect it. It's just like their protection is kind of over it. Like it's kind of known if you attack this place, you'll have to deal with Britain. But it's kind of a tax haven so a lot of businesses run there. A lot of online businesses run there. So actually, in the article, it mentions the Isle of Man is a 30-mile long island off the northwest England with a population of around 85,000. Yet it has more than 170 startups, 20 which are based around currency, is energy self-sufficient, and has a GDP of £4 billion. Digital companies make up 20% of that GDP. So it makes a lot of sense for them to want to encourage Bitcoin because, I mean, those digital the companies are going to want to have that, so they're going to be bringing in more business if they're allowed to run with Bitcoin. So the main thing that they're looking at Bitcoin working well in the Isle of Man is because of the low taxes, the low income tax. There's a 20% cap of income tax, which, I mean, how high does it get in America? Do you know, Daniel?
I don't know anything specific, but I've heard numbers like over 50% for some people. Yeah.
So, and that's why not just tech companies go there, but a lot of companies go there. There's banks there, and there's not much. I don't think there's any kind of tax on. Or wait, I can read it here. It's also a hotbed for tech startups due to its tax advantages. There's zero corporation tax, capital gains tax, inheritance tax, and a low personal tax. So it's great for startups. They don't have to come up with as much money for. It takes a little bit of the burden away from them. And besides all the monetary or the economic incentives, there's also the island is going to be launching its ICT university at the end of 2015 with tech company partners HP and Huawei. So there's a lot of stuff going into building the island up.
So the question, well, first of all, it seems like the general idea here is that it's a attractive place for innovation for tech companies and stuff, just with the low taxes and stuff. So that's, I guess, a good thing, but I don't know. I guess I'm wondering if it's good enough. Because, I mean, we talk all the time about how, well, like, yeah, it says up above, like, that's going to be the first country with, like, a regulatory framework and stuff. And do we think that's really a good thing? I mean...
I don't get what they're meaning by regulatory framework.
Well, yeah, even the article puts it in quotation marks. And I don't think they're, like... I think they think it's a good thing, and they still don't really...
But even in the article it says something about this decentralization creates volatility. And no, it's not just the decentralization, you stupid idiot.
Yeah, I saw I was like, what?
I fucking hate these...
What was the problem?
It says the decentralization is what causes the volatility.
They just say shit, and it makes no...
Wait, they're saying that Bitcoin is centralized?
No, they're saying because it's decentralized. It says the decentralization is what creates volatility.
Yeah,
there's a paragraph that says Bitcoin uses peer-to-peer technology to process transactions. This decentralization creates volatility. In January, Bitcoin crashed by nearly 30%. It crashed even harder in 2014, which spooked UK banks, causing them to stop working with digital currency industry on the island. Now the island's government has come up with a stronger framework to give more support to digital currencies. Well, but I don't ever see them saying anything about new stuff. It's all their old stuff. All the stuff they already had.
Well, I think the legal framework is still kind of a new thing that's...
But they're not showing anything that's new. They're all just saying this stuff that we've had, because it's already had...
Because it's not there yet. They're just working on it.
Oh, okay. And down at the bottom, it talks about they're going to be the first place to get 5G trial services.
But I still have the same question though. Like it's nice to have low taxes and it's nice to attract business and stuff, but I'm wondering if that's like enough, because there are still there is still a government. They are about to, or not,
compared to any place else in the world. This is wonderful for Bitcoin startups.
No, yeah, I know that, but
yeah, I don't know about that.
But maybe it's better now, but if there is still a government, won't it just eventually turn into the same joke?
Yeah, but you've got time before it happens.
It depends on... Well, I don't know if that if you
You
can
just
even
jump ship whenever it starts going down and you go someplace else.
I have a hard time believing that a 30-mile long island would ever do that. It seems like the only people who live on it are like people who work for tech startups. Like,
I mean, there is a.
How are they going to start? They're not going to start like a military and like have all this power and stuff.
Okay.
Who are you saying for? Or you're saying like you don't think they're going to turn around? I think it's less likely because they don't have a military. There's no.
I think before
reason
that
to
happens,
become more powerful.
I think before that happens, people would just like leave, or it would just become like a tourist resort or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess a huge benefit, just with the lower taxes, even though there's still taxes, it's just a better life. I mean, yeah, it sucks that you got to pay them, but if you get to keep more of your money, then I guess that's just an attractive place.
Yeah, well, nothing's going to be perfect. That's what I'm saying. Is nothing's going to be.
Right.
You're right. If we're talking in a thing like if this article was like not a figurative, but more of like an idea thing, then yeah, sure, I'd say it'd be better to have no government over it.
Right, but
just to let people just work. But if it's something like this, I'm going to say, yeah, this is great. Or I don't know if it's great, but maybe it won't be. But I'm hopeful that it'll be good for it because it just opens more stuff up.
I'm going to play devil's advocate and say that I think it's going to be terrible. Because, well, like you said, what is this regulatory framework? Like, that it doesn't, like, they're going to have a legal framework for Bitcoin, and that's supposed to attract more people. And the worst thing about that is that I feel like they're probably right. If they have, like, people should be wanting to not have a legal framework for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Like, why? That shouldn't attract businesses to start, or Bitcoin businesses to start up, but I'm afraid that it probably will.
Right. It's kind of like what we talked about with the Bitcoin Foundation, how like I guess they advocate for really limited or even non-existent regulation, limited. But just the fact that you want to get the government's permission is kind of a setback.
Well, yeah, and I think if people go here to start up things, then it's just gonna spread to other people. If they're like, oh yeah, look, this is like having regulation has helped us start our business up and stuff. It's great. You should get this in your country. You should regulate it so you can start using it too, and that's like defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah, but I don't see that. I mean, it's saying regulatory framework, but from what some of the other things that's been in this article, and then from other articles we've gotten from Business Insider, I have no idea if this guy even has any idea what he's talking about, because he does say, here's the Isle of Man's plan, and he doesn't list any kind of plan until the last two paragraphs where he talks about the school and that they're going to get 5G. There's nothing else about a plan to do anything.
Wait, where does it say something about a plan?
He says, here's the title of the article is called, Here's the Isle of Man's Plan to Become a Bitcoin Paradise.
Well, it's just that they're going to have a regulatory framework.
Well, that, and I think all that other tech stuff is still part of becoming a Bitcoin paradise.
Yeah.
I mean, I think use the language that the legal framework sets legislation in place for fintech enterprises to operate more freely in security, because somehow legislation does that.
Well, I think what he's saying is that it attracts, like, everybody who's there is like working for tech startups, and they're starting this thing, and like people who are into tech tend to be more into Bitcoin. And I think he's also making the assumption that people who are into Bitcoin are also into places that have lower taxes and less stuff like that, which is a fair assumption to make because it's probably true.
Yeah. It does say, though, it creates a government jurisdiction. I mean, you probably read this. I just hadn't read it yet, but creates a government jurisdiction for the industry, which means it has practical responsibility and authority on how the marketplace operates. If that's how it is, then that's not making it run freely at all, and that, it'd be a terrible idea.
Well, it also says that they do stuff with digital currencies, and like there's one part where it says the Isle of Man offers friendly but firm legislation for digital currency startups.
Yeah.
Okay. What does that mean?
And it says we have regulations and infrastructure in place to become a world leader in digital currencies, Greenhill tells Business Insider. We have companies coming in and setting up. We see this as the future, and we want to be at the center of this development in this area.
Pompous asshole. Okay. Never mind. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Fuck the Isle of Man.
No, I wouldn't say that, because it seems like it's still a pretty good place. I think they're just missing...
Yeah. They're missing it. They're doing better than most
It's not even that they're missing it. It's like...
That's just not how they think.
No, I think they're right. I think it will... I think people will go there to make startups. The problem is, I think they're more worried about getting startups than they are worried about what the currency actually stands for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like what it can do beyond a currency.
Yeah.
It's going to be about getting more of that.
This place is more just...
all the money flowing in.
Let me ask this.
Which I guess is still good. They're just a bunch of greedy bastards, which I'm okay with.
Would you prefer that a whole bunch of people used Bitcoin and it was regulated, or that less people used Bitcoin?
Less people use Bitcoin.
Okay.
Why would I want it regulated?
Well, maybe using it is
It'd be pointless
helpful enough.
I don't know. It depends on what the regulation is, I guess.
Yeah, and it depends how you're using it and stuff. Yeah. I mean, I guess the ideal situation would be if you used it long enough, eventually you would realize that regulation is unnecessary, but I don't know if that would actually happen for most people.
Yeah, and I was trying to think of some kind of regulation that's like non-intrusive, but I can't really think of anything. Maybe there's something like that would be like a loophole to that question, but
yeah. You're listening to the You, Me, and BTC podcast. We need your help. First of all, we'd love it if you could check out our website, youmeandbtc.com. There you can find donation addresses for every single article and episode, and we'd love it if you could make use of those. We could also use some fans and followers, so if you're willing, please visit Facebook or Twitter.com/youmeandbtc. Lastly, remember to subscribe to the show. You can do that on iTunes or sign up on our website to receive email updates. Thanks for your support. Well, with all this regulation talk, it actually wouldn't be a bad idea to move into net neutrality.
I thought you were going to try to turn that into a joke. I was going to kill you.
He is going to talk about his paper.
The way you were saying it, you were like, well, with all that talk about regulation.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Oh, man. I think I decided I'm going to cut most of that and put it at the end as an extended cut. A director's cut. So that way we won't lose people at the beginning, but they can still enjoy the crap out of themselves, or at least watch us enjoy the crap out of ourselves.
No one's enjoying the crap out of themselves, man.
I still have all the crap in me.
Your idea of fun is way too low if this is enjoying the crap out of yourself.
Anyway, so every week, I mention this pretty often, I write a bits and pieces article on Monday, and a lot of times I like to bring it up, for the second half of the show, just so I can share what my thoughts were. I can share what I've thought since I've written the article, and I can get some ideas from Tim and John. So we're going to touch on that today. My article this week was about net neutrality, and there were two main parts. The first was just a general explanation of why I'm not a huge fan of the idea. I mean, you probably could have guessed. I mean, we've been talking about regulation this whole time so far, so that's where I stand. I don't think it makes sense to regulate it. And I guess before we get into any details or anything, do you guys have any thoughts? Do you know how it works? Is that where you would stand? Is there any exceptions you would make?
I guess I'll just say that I haven't really known what to think about it, but like reading your article, I think I pretty much agree with everything you said in it.
Okay. So the main trouble with me writing about it is like, and I mentioned this at the end, but I'm not like well, actually nobody's even an expert yet because the regulations haven't even been made public yet. So honestly, nobody's an expert, but the general idea is just that they want to kind of, I don't know all the exact details, but it's almost like a flat pricing mechanism where you're not allowed to charge extra for fast lanes or anything like that.
Yeah, because everyone's like, no, Comcast is going to just kill us. It's just going to be terrible because they'd only give it to the corporations.
Right.
Yeah, even from the beginning, and it wasn't for the right reason, because it wasn't because I went through it. It was just because I assumed, because I just assume when any of these things come up, when there's this many, when there's enough people who, like when the two sides that are fighting are pretty big, I kind of just assume that both of the ones that I'm seeing represented most of the time are wrong and are missing a point, like, because it seems like any of the groups that get covered the most are the ones that just pick on like a certain one issue and then just full force right into it, and they don't really look at all at the other side. But I kind of always just assumed that it was another one of these things where it's like people are trying to blame corporations and then are just trying to use the government to protect them, and the government and the corporations are just going to work together like normal and just screw everybody over.
Right.
But then people are going to be like, yay, they saved us.
Well, that's the interesting thing, because there's in this situation, there's two main groups of corporations. There's like Amazon and Netflix, like they always mention, who deliver content, and supposedly they support neutrality because then they won't have to be charged more for delivering instant video or whatever. And then the interesting group is they call them last mile internet service providers. They're the people who actually take the internet directly to your house, and that's like Comcast and Verizon. Yeah. And there's a little bit of discussion about whether or not they actually supported it or not, because at first the idea was they were the ones who were going to charge more, so of course they would not want net neutrality because they would want to be allowed to charge more for extra services. So at first, they were supposedly against net neutrality, but then some people said that they kind of, I don't know if they flip-flopped or they just kind of stepped back or what, but they actually ended up kind of letting net neutrality go, like Verizon and Comcast, because even though they would want to charge more, they are big enough to absorb those costs. They can deal with it. They won't...
Yeah, they'll just get rid of any of their competition.
Right, exactly. And a startup will never be able to afford the extra costs.
Yeah,
but
that's why they do
enough.
this. You have all these people, yay, I support my local business, I support this. Oh, wait, the corporations are going to get this stuff? Oh, let's force all these things on them, because the corporations don't give a shit. The corporations have plenty of money. They have all the money that they can to just take everything you do. You're just killing the small businesses, you idiots. Because we can't take the time to think about things for 5 seconds before we shoot off our stupid mouths and complain about stuff and then vote other people into oblivion. Sorry, I'm angry tonight.
No, that's fine. I want to mention this briefly because it is kind of a core part of what I wrote, but it's also what I wrote, so I don't have to explain too much. But I like the analogy that I borrowed it mostly from Jeffrey Tucker, but I modified it slightly. Basically, the analogy was that imagine if overnight shipping was required to be the same price as any other kind of shipping. That would be insane. Like, everybody would just go for overnight shipping, or overnight shipping what would more likely happen is the shipping companies couldn't afford to ship everything overnight, and they couldn't raise prices because then nobody could afford to ship anything ever, so they would have to just nix overnight shipping as a whole. There would never be overnight shipping because nobody could afford it. And so that's what would happen with the internet. All the innovation, everything that gets faster and faster would just not be profitable. There wouldn't have to be any innovation, and these big companies they would still make money even without innovating. So
I liked your point in the article about how why shouldn't you pay more for higher bandwidth things? It's more work.
Yeah,
People
exactly.
are like, no, I don't want to have to pay more. It's a right. I'm like, how is it a right?
The only reason I might argue with you about saying that they don't have an incentive to innovate is that because it's going to cost them just as much, like no matter what speed they're doing, they're going to want to try to make it, like they're going to want to try to be able to provide the fastest speeds they can at the lowest cost. Because it's best for them. So they're going to want things to get faster because then it'll be cheaper for them to give people like the highest thing and it be the same price still.
But what's their incentive to be faster though? You're saying that they want to give people faster service, but why? They're getting paid the same price either way.
No, they want it to be cheaper for them to do faster service, which I think the only way that's going to happen is if there's
I could see that. They want to innovate. They want to innovate to lower their own costs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Not other costs. Yeah, not their consumers' costs. Yeah, I could see that a little.
Now, that still may not help. I mean, I don't know how the laws are going to be, because if that happens and then they're required to then just provide keep providing the fastest all the time, then there's no incentive. But if it's like, well, they're providing this speed, like I don't know what's a high speed now, like
the threshold for broadband is 25 megabytes per second.
Okay, so like they're offering that now. Will they find out a way to do like 50 megabits per second, but they still only sell up to 25, but it's cheaper for them to do. But the way the laws work, it might require them to then start selling 50 if they can do that.
Right, and that's something that's the kind of thing that like I said, I'm not the expert on that kind of stuff, on what the laws might be, on who's gonna support what regulations. And I do want to mention, which I did at the end of the article, so look for a link there, but I did read an article at Wired that this guy's been working on net neutrality for a really long time, and he knows all the ins and outs. So, and he was against it. He explained how it's just, all this legal stuff is just so much overhead, even before you start talking about like the legitimacy of the rules. It's just so much overhead, so much litigation, so much interpreting, so much uncertainty. It's a joke, honestly.
Yeah. Even if I'm like what I was saying was true, that it might not get rid of incentive for innovation, I still don't think it's the greatest idea.
Right.
That was just providing some kind of other opinion, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's I can see where you're coming from there, and it just depends on what all the exact laws and decisions are. So, but we can, before we finish, I think we should mention the bringing this a little bit closer to Bitcoin. I mean, it's just as a tech thing, it should be pretty important to us, but the second half of the article, I did mention a pretty interesting idea with Bitcoin that somebody proposed also at Wired. He came up with this idea for how Bitcoin could be used to kind of make internet access more fair, more distributed. And this is actually something, similar, not identical, but it's related to an idea that I think we heard Antonopoulos share at Bitcoin in the Beltway. And this is another thing that I'm not an expert on, but I'm just going to try and get the general idea, is that he said you could you could like use your router to like share internet access, because you have, especially if you have fiber optics, you have a ton of bandwidth that you don't use. Like, those are some pretty darn high speeds. And no matter what your speeds are, there's always times when you're not using the internet. So the idea is that you could share that wirelessly. Instead of having to have fiber go all the way down, you could wirelessly, which is, Wi-Fi itself. I mean, once you get to the open cyberspace, then things can slow down, but the Wi-Fi itself is pretty darn fast. So if you're just passing signals like house to house or coffee shop to coffee shop or whatever, that's some pretty reasonable speeds you could get there wirelessly. And the general idea is that you could share bandwidth, unused bandwidth, and the place Bitcoin comes in is Bitcoin could be used for micropayments on that kind of system. So if I wanted to access a server and I wanted to go through the router next door, I could make a really, really tiny payment, and that would give me internet access, and that router itself might be buying access from a nearby router, and it just goes all the way down the line to wherever you need to get, and the computers can automatically search for the quickest and cheapest route to the end server. Maybe that sounds a little complex, and I do think it's a long way off before we could ever actually have something like that. But
have you heard the rumors about Google working on wireless internet?
I've sort of heard that, yeah. But give me details.
Well, I mean, I don't want to go too much into it, and I read the article months ago, and I don't really remember everything. But there's a wavelength. I don't remember. I don't think it's like in the radio spectrum or something. I think it's a really, really small wavelength that has potential to send like information at really high speeds that they've been doing experiments with, or people think they're doing experiments with. It's all really top secret, so no one really knows. Okay. But I think they might have like had to file for permission to do these experiments, so like some of it has gotten out, but that's what people think they're working on. It's kind of not really related to the main topic of this, but
well, I mean, that is this Bitcoin like Wi-Fi article was basically saying how Wi-Fi, and I don't know what, like, this is another just completely strange idea, but apparently like certain wavelengths are regulated and certain wavelengths are unregulated or unlicensed, and that was his point, was that Wi-Fi signals are unlicensed, so we can use them and share them at our own will.
Yeah.
However we want to do that.
I think what Google's talking about is different than Wi-Fi, though, because I think it's slightly longer distance.
Right.
It's like what they were saying in the article I was reading was that like every town might have like a tower in the middle that sends internet instead of having wires.
Yeah.
So like you wouldn't even have wires going to your home. It still wouldn't be like you can send it across the country, but like every small town might have its own thing, and that might be able to.
Right, and we do have that with like cellular networks. I mean, that's another cool innovation in this whole space. But I'm sure Google has a lot more plans.
I think it's these, whatever they're experimenting with, it's getting it to be able to send large amounts of information at high speeds.
Right.
Which is that's the hard part. But getting back on topic, what you were saying reminded me of something that I was thinking about earlier with net neutrality. Have you thought about how it will actually affect Bitcoin because of like mining and people running nodes? Like it could actually be good for Bitcoin, I guess, because it's not going to be more expensive for people to support huge chunks of the network.
You mean
because of using like a lot of connection?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I don't know. It just intuitively it sounds sketchy to me. There has to be something wrong with that.
No, I'm not saying it's like it's good. The price that you pay isn't worth it, but I feel like it could make it cheaper. And that that could help.
Yeah. But then
or not make it cheaper, but keep it from getting more expensive, I guess.
Right.
So if people are running nodes and mining a lot, they're using a ton of internet connection.
Yeah.
So if it's not a one price fits all, they're going to be spending a lot more money doing that. So it's going to be more expensive to run.
But I think we need, it's supposed to cost something to mine. Like, you shouldn't be able to like mine for free.
Well, it's not going to be for free,
right? But
it's just
it should be market priced. It shouldn't be a flat rate. It shouldn't be that anybody can mine like as much as they want.
The market?
Well, yeah, I agree. I agree with that from like an ethical standpoint, but that doesn't change the fact that it still could make it cheaper.
Okay. Yeah, cheaper. Well,
which could be
cheaper. It's kind of the same thing as I said with the shipping. It might seem cheaper at first, but eventually somebody's going to have to find those costs, and the shipping company is either just going to have to keep things slow, or they're going to have to raise prices.
Yeah, that's true too. But at the same time, that depends on the regulations, because
right.
This is supposedly it's supposed to be a public utility now, so the government might be setting price limits on everything.
Yep.
So that that doesn't mean that it's not going to be really expensive, but
yeah, I agree. And at this point, we're just talking about how we don't know the regulations yet, so
yeah,
I don't know.
This is all speculation.
Right. I don't know if there's much further we can get. Thanks for listening to episode 63. All of the music in today's show was from John Stewart. Remember to check out this week's show notes at youmeandbtc.com and leave us a comment. We'll see you next Thursday, but remember to stick around for the first ever You, Me, and BTC after party. So John, we've been rambling a bit, and so I want to be quick, but I want to try something on you real quick. So I was watching this one comedian the other day. I just want you to tell me if this is actually a funny joke or what.
No.
So he got his first line as soon as he got on stage. He starts telling this story. So like, I was when I was growing up, I kind of thought about being a comedian. I thought it'd be cool and stuff. And my friend told me, he's like, dude, yeah, you should be one of those clean comedians where like you go up there and you just tell nice family friendly jokes and you don't swear or anything, right? And so I'm like, dude, yeah, that's a fucking good idea. So I took a shower before tonight's show, and okay.
Boo.
You know what? That's gonna get cut.
Boo.
That was funny.
Oh, Jesus. I'm never going anywhere with my life, Tim. That was supposed to be my opening joke when I finally get an open mic.
Oh, no.
It's so bad.
Yeah,
you
bad.
better just stick with your threesome joke. At least that has some like surprise to it. This one's just like, oh, I know where he's going with this. It's gonna be bad.
I think I laugh more at people who think their jokes are funny than I actually laugh at people's jokes.
No, the problem that I just realized with that is after I mentioned clean, I like described how like you shouldn't swear and stuff. I should have just said, "Oh, you should be a clean comedian." Yeah, that's a good idea. I took a shower tonight. I shouldn't have put all that swearing stuff in the middle.
That wasn't the only problem with it.
I think it's just the whole thing.
I knew, like, even before you said the shower thing, I knew the punchline was going to be a swear word, or it was going to have to do with swearing, because
yeah.
I mean, maybe that was because you said one of those comedians who doesn't swear.
Yeah,
Maybe
that was
that's
a
why.
mistake.
But I was expecting it. It wasn't surprising at all.
All right, so that last 2 minutes is going out the window. So I'm gonna try and do a better. I'm just gonna throw something in here and try and make this work when I edit.
You can just leave that in.
Well, I could if I
And
had
then
to.
they'll wonder what was in the part that was cut out. I think we've talked about this before. Yeah, we've definitely said that before.
Besides, Daniel, you have too much self-respect. You'll never make it.
That's probably true. No, I gotta tell you about that sometime, actually, Tim. But anyway, well, that's for another time. Anyway, no, I really freaking love comedy, but I guess it's not Sean's thing. So
I don't have much of a sense of humor.
well,
I've been realizing that, like, things that people think are funny, I'm just like,
I don't know. I don't know. I think a lot of people think a lot of things are way funnier than they are, and I just hate them for it. I mean, maybe that's just me being very judgmental too, but I get very angry when people think things are funny and I don't. Like, I don't take it as, wow, it is funny. I'm just not used to, I'm like, people are retarded and stupid, but that's just how I think.
I get really pissed off when, like, somebody tells a joke and, like, I feel like they need me to laugh at it for them. And I'm like, stop demanding things of me. You're not funny. You're not funny, and I'm not here to please you.
I know exactly the kind of situation you're talking about. and with my general attitude with life, I just laugh because I want to make people happy. So
I can't
muster up one of those fake laughs.
I can't even do that though. Like, I don't think I can physically fake laugh.
There's
it
no
was
way.
beaten out of all of us, I think. the caring if people, like laughing at people to make them feel. I mean, not to you, Daniel, but I think that died just with some of the people who would say things, and at the end I was like, no, I'm not even gonna fake it for that. That was so bad.
Yeah, I saw your uncle yesterday.
Oh,
and he's one of those.
I know. He said to me one time, he's like, Tim, you can laugh. You don't always have to be so serious. I'm like, I mean, I wasn't like, I didn't say anything to him, but I was talking to his sons later, and they're like, yeah, we don't really find that funny either. And then I'm like, yeah, no, it's not like I was like having to like hold back my laughter. It's just, it's not that funny.
Yeah.
I want to leave a lot of that in there, but there's no way I can keep 14 minutes of stand-up commentary.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, we'll see, maybe. Because we're going to lose people. Like, after 12 minutes, they're going to be like, this is not Bitcoin.
We should do an epic double episode. And then this will be like the beginning of our pretentious experimental period.
We got it, Daniel. You didn't have to explain it.
No, that's going to be my gig. I'm going to explain all my jokes so people actually get that.
You see? Shut up! No, wait, you don't get it. Yes, we do.
I think I've actually thought about that, just doing like really awkward, like when I try to tell jokes I always forget how they go and I ruin them. What if I just got up on stage and started doing that and be like, oh, I forgot how this one goes. I'll just try to tell it as best I can. So like there's this guy, and did he go into a bar or was it I can't. I think it was a bar. We'll just say he went into a bar.
Oh my gosh. What is happening?
This is three people who don't know how to really associate with most of the people around them, and then we keep a lot of stuff hidden, and then we just end up just talking about it now.